see how some of these cells are pressing themselves together like in a little mass or a group. And that happens, as I was saying to her earlier, when the electrical charge of the cell starts to deteriorate, they start to become sticky. Acidity is kind of like a molecular glue that causes cells to start to clump on top of each other, press together. Essentially, it's like the blood is starting to clot. And that can lead to lower oxygen to your brain and tissues. That can affect your energy, your concentration, your certainly your emotions, any kind of symptoms of lower levels of oxygen.
Yeah,
Creates
noticed
stress.
that.
Looks like your red blood cell count is great. You've got a really high count. There's a lot of cells per area as they go around, which is good. Got some yeast cells here. Say a low amount, not nearly as much as Mary had. And again, that can contribute to sugar cravings. That can also contribute to lower levels of energy. And then yeast, for both of you guys, if it continues to expand and continues to grow, you can end up with things like toenail fungus, rashes, even things that are higher expressions like shingles and things. Most human disease, different levels, has a yeast component. So at the lowest level, we're dealing with toenail fungus. At the highest level, we're dealing with things like Crohn's, pneumonia, even HIV and AIDS to some extent, because basically we're talking about yeast outfections expressing themselves as symptoms. So pneumonia is a yeast outfection of the respiratory tract. Crohn's is a yeast outfection of the digestive tract. And in people that have been diagnosed with HIV and AIDS, they have a tremendous amount of problems with fungus and yeast in their body, and they typically die of symptomologies like pneumonia and others because the immune system is compromised by this higher level of yeast circulating throughout the system as it's in this massive breakdown. And these yeasts that you have here, there's different forms of yeast. There's Y form, M form, and G form, and those different forms just are kind of talk about how they behave or their shapes and stuff, kind of indicate their level of tenacity, if you will. You've got all different forms, all three of those forms in here. So while you don't have as much yeast, these yeast are a little bit more, ingrained. They're a little bit more difficult to get out because you've got these mycelial forms here that kind of almost look like they're forming bacterial rods.
Now, does yeast have anything to do with herpes?
It can contribute to it, absolutely. Contribute to the symptomologies. The symptomologies of the flare-up is going to express itself like that.
Yeah.
The sores is going to have a yeast component. Yeah. So the good thing is that if that's a concern, that's something that you can also get rid of as you alkalize and energize. There's no reason why that you'll ever have a flare-up again when the body is alkaline. There's definitely a lot more yeast starting to pop up, as you see. So what's happening is there's more yeast now showing up than there was when I was zooming around earlier. So that's showing a lot of pleomorphic activity. So pleomorphic activity means that as we're sitting here watching your blood, cells are actually degenerating and giving birth to yeast. So yeast and bacteria is arising as we're observing it. So Dr. Young believes in and teaches something called pleomorphism, and that is cells have more than one form and one function in the body. Okay, so they are a red blood cell is not always a red blood cell. As acidity goes up and oxidative stress goes up, that red blood cell is going to change its form and function into bacteria, then into yeast or fungus, then into mold, and then back into the small ferments that actually is kind of like the baseline of what makes up cells, which he calls a microzyma. So he calls it one eternal round.